today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Per the latest from Uncrowned, who have ranked Katie Taylor ahead of Claressa Shields via a popularity vote for what is Uncrowned's pound-for-pound list on the heels of Katie Taylor's latest victory and on the eve of Claressa Shields' next fight. Katie Taylor made it 3-0 in her historic rivalry with Amanda Serrano earlier this month at a sold-out Madison Square Garden. Taylor and Serrano, two of Uncrowned's top pound-for-pound boxers, had two controversial Fight of the Year contenders in both 2022 and 2024. But when they met for the third time on July 11th, Ireland's Taylor outboxed the Puerto Rican for a more convincing victory to take a clean sweep in their much-hyped trilogy. By doing so, Taylor convinced Uncrowned's panel of experts, Kel Dansby, Alan Dawson, Darshan Desai, and Jake Donovan, Lewis Watson, and Elliot Warcell, that she was worthy of dethroning Claressa Shields for the number one spot in the women's boxing pound-for-pound rankings.
In addition to that, Uncrowned's voters have ranked both the men's and women's pound-for-pound best, 1 through 10, using a weighted point system to determine the final rankings. Being voted number 1 equals 10 points, being voted number 2 equals 9.
Down to number 10 equaling just 1 point, and so you see the formula and you see the results that whether it's the Uncrowned panel, editorial panel, or the Uncrowned voters, they all have it the same way. Katie Taylor is number 1.
Now, when you go about doing a pound-for-pound list this way, whether it's via an editorial panel or an open poll for voters, that makes it a popularity contest, and this is a popularity vote. But why is the popular vote Katie Taylor over Claressa Shields? It's likely because the only area where Claressa surpasses Katie is in the number of vacant titles collected. It is true that Claressa's been an undisputed champion at more weights than Katie Taylor, but she hasn't fought better fighters than Katie Taylor has fought. All she has done is collected more titles that no one was holding. So on the face of it, you say that, well, Claressa's been undisputed more times at more weights than Katie.
It's not just the act of collecting titles and going undisputed, but who you had to fight in order to get there.
Who you've fought is a lot more important.
Who you fight and who you beat is the biggest testament to where your skills are, as not all undisputed runs are created equal. It's the difference between, say, Devin Haney's undisputed run at lightweight and Alexander Usyk's undisputed run at cruiser or heavy.
One of those runs had a lot more meat and potatoes than the other. All Devin had to do was fight George Kambosos for the other 3 titles.
All Devin had to do was fight one guy, where Usyk had to fight Krzysztof Glowacki and Murat Gassiev, Maris Briedis.
One of those runs had a lot more meat and potatoes than the other.
And it's the same with Katie and Claressa, to where Katie may not have been an undisputed champion at as many weights as Claressa, but her quality of competition is light years ahead of Claressa's. Who has Claressa really fought in the subsequent years that have followed the Savannah Marshall fight?
What was that, 2-3 years ago?
Who has Claressa fought that compares with fighting Chantel Cameron 2 times and Amanda Serrano 2 more? Who has Claressa been fighting that compares to those fighters on Katie's resume?
It was never close.
On the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, Katie and Claressa are the number 1 and number 2 pound-for-pound fighters there, the top 2, but the difference between them, it's not close. Not only is Katie's resume many times deeper than Claressa's, but she literally fights more often, even though they both debuted as professionals the same year.
Claressa's got a fight coming up against Lonnie Daniels.
Isn't Lonnie Daniels a light heavyweight champion?
Yes, she is, but they're not fighting for her light heavyweight title. This fight is at heavyweight. This fight is for Claressa's titles, so you really can't say that she's facing a champion when she's not bringing a belt for Claressa to win. Claressa's the one with all the belts.
And how does Lonnie Daniels compare with fighting Amanda Serrano, with fighting Chantel Cameron? How does she compare?
She doesn't.
It's not hard to understand. In truth, it never was. And the push for Claressa to be ranked ahead of Katie Taylor never had a whole lot to do with their resumes or boxing. It was tribalism. It was American Tribalism.
It always was.
And it still is. Anybody telling you that Claressa should be ranked ahead of Katie can't be saying that based on resume or frequency of fights. They're only doing it because of commonality. Whatever they have in common with Claressa, that's all they care about.
And what the rest of the world don't care about, because whatever you got in common with her has fuck all to do with a pound-for-pound list.
I'm glad to see that the people at Uncrowned and the uncrowned voters have come to their senses and they see things the way I see things. Katie was always number one ahead of Claressa.
Until further notice.
I want to give Alexander Usyk his flowers. I want him to be celebrated on a show like this because of what he did. I am still in awe of what he did on Saturday. You were there. Tell us, what was it like being in that stadium, your national stadium, 90,000 people? And correct me if I'm wrong, it felt like Usyk wasn't in enemy territory, so to speak. He has beaten Tyson twice. He has beaten AJ twice. And yet it seemed like he was celebrated just as much as Daniel. What was it all like? Because it looked fantastic on TV.
Yeah, on the back end of what you said, I think Alexander Usyk is loved over here because it's how he wins. And what I mean, when I say how he wins, I don't necessarily mean how he wins the fights. It's how he handles the victory. He's always polite. He's always respectful. His opponent's always respectful to him. He always comes across as a fantastic guy, never says a bad word. And I think the British public have got behind that. In saying that, I do think it was almost like Ukraine in there. Like, I do think like 70% of the audience in there were Ukrainians. I think they really turned up for him. The British public got behind him as well because they like him. And although they want to see Daniel win, I think it's almost a case of may the best man win because they like both. But he was just a genius in there. There was a time in that fight where Alexander Usyk decided, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stand my ground and fight. Because if I let this raging bull feel like he's going to dictate me, then I could get run over. And Alexander Usyk snapped his Daniel Dubois' head back with a jab in the first 20 seconds. And universally, ringside, we all looked at each other and was like, yeah, the fight's done. Like, he's almost decided, you know what, I'm going to dictate how this plays, not you. Because I am the pound-for-pound king, I am the unbeaten heavyweight champion, and I'm going to show you there's levels here. And that's what he did. And even when Daniel started to get him in the corner, and Daniel, to be fair, tried, he had a go, and that's all you can do. Even then, the way he kind of pivoted out, like I could have just watched his lower half move, because the way in which his feet move for a 229-pound heavyweight who's supposed to be old is sensational. But once he decides to stand and trade, he no longer is a small cruiserweight moving up. He's got the power of a heavyweight. And I think we've seen this in fights against AJ and Fury and now Dubois. He can hurt you. It's where before they used to think they can just overpower him with size and bully him. You can't do that no more. So he can hurt you. He can outbox you. He can outmaneuver you. He's got more experience than you. He's a nightmare. Honestly, he's a nightmare. And as you say correctly at the top of the show, he's clearly pound for pound number one. I don't want to hear Inoue. I don't want to hear Crawford. I don't want to hear my guy Bivol. He's so far in front of these guys because it's in the title, pound for pound. He's given away so much poundage when he's fighting these guys, 20, 30, 50 pounds, and he's still hurting them and outboxing them. He's a genius, Ariel, a genius.
It's the exact same reason Usyk is ranked at number one on my list, on the Ring IQ pound for pound list, as Ade Oladipo so eloquently put it. It's all in the name. Pound for pound. People seem to interpret this as meaning something else when it has everything to do with weight. That 221 pounds of Usyk is better than, say, 250 or 273 pounds of some other fighter.
And even with that big win on Saturday, that big knockout win, and putting to rest all the narratives, there are some who are diminishing Usyk, saying it just shows us how weak our era is when one person is so far ahead of the others.
So either this is a young guy, or this is a guy who was living under a rock during Roy Jones Jr.'s heyday, because it was the same with him. It was Roy at number one, then everybody else, and they were way behind him.
Wasn't close.
And no, it's not because the era is weak. It's just because this guy is that good, and you don't want to admit it. Another guy who goes by the name YBG Drake said, this era of heavyweight boxing isn't good enough to crown whoever is king of the pound for pound.
Bullshit.
Go back to Roy Jones Jr. Who was it that he beat at heavyweight for a heavyweight title? He beat John the Quiet Man Ruiz. Are you saying that Roy wasn't pound for pound for beating him? Or are you saying that he was, and beating John the Quiet Man Ruiz is better than beating Anthony Joshua 2 times, Tyson Fury 2 times, Daniel Dubois 2 times? What are you saying?
A lot of bullshit. A lot of nothing, and that's why people like you are intended to be ignored.
You're the downside of the internet. You're proof that not everybody deserves a platform to speak. Some people are better off shunned. Usyk is number 1. Though in truth, he was already number 1 on my list before Saturday's fight. What Ade Oladipo said to Ariel Helwani is what I've been saying to you here on this channel for a lot longer, for some time now, that you're not going to find a lot of fighters like Crawford and Canelo and Inoue. They're not going to find themselves at a weight disadvantage like this guy regularly does, and that's what pound for pound is all about, that your skills can overcome overwhelming size or overwhelming weight, that physically you may be at a disadvantage, but tactically
221 pounds of this guy is better than 250 pounds of him or 273 pounds of him.
that a pound of gold is worth more than 2 pounds of brass or 2 pounds of ass.
Huh?
That 221 pounds of Alexander Usyk is the gold standard, is pound for pound numero uno, but some of these other aforementioned fighters may yet give us reason to reconsider who's at number 1.
But they don't know how to have fun with it the way that we do.
Terrence Crawford is about to move up 2 weight classes to take on Canelo Alvarez, and if by some chance he beats him, and how he beats him, we may have to reconsider who's at number 1.
Because what if he knocks him out?
I'm not saying that he will, or even evaluating the probability of that happening, as the probability is very low, but what if by some chance he does?
Boxing is the theater of the unexpected.
At least momentarily, I have Alexander Usyk at number 1 until further notice, and for good reason. It's because almost every title he's ever won, he's won on the road. He never had home field advantage. He was always the away fighter. He was the away fighter on Saturday.
For the last 5 years, he's been outweighed by every opponent that he's faced. Literally all of them.
That's what pound for pound is all about. Skill over size. Skill over weight.
It's not a hard concept to understand. It's only difficult because you don't want to accept.
You don't want to admit that this guy's the best in show right now, and it's gonna take a lot for somebody to usurp that number 1 spot from him.
A whole lot.
Given the fact he got up, and I've got a feeling that there was more to be had from him. And I don't want to say swallow because I've never laced up gloves, but I ask other fighters that were sat across the table from me, and they don't like to answer these questions this way. But the general perception is, and I looked here, Daniel gets up on the referee counts him out. He walks across the ring as if he's having an afternoon stroll.
I'm so glad
I asked Joe Parker. I asked Joe Parker. I asked Lawrence Okolie. Lawrence was a little bit more reticent. Joe's perspective was, there's a swallow there.
Okay, please. I know with time. It so happens those 2 fighters who were in the studio yesterday are still currently, they're active, they're current heavyweights. Yeah? God willing, he's going to meet those 2 characters, and let's see who swallows it. Let's see who's quitting.
Very disgruntled Don Charles, protective of his fighter, defensive over the accusation that once again Daniel bottled it, swallowed it, and chose to stay down. That wasn't my immediate thought in real time as I watched the fight, though maybe I was celebrating a little bit too hard. To notice that Danny Boy basically got up and walked over to his corner like he was walking across his living room looking for the remote, that maybe his wits and his faculties were there, but he chose to stay down. That's the opinion of Derek Chisora, like it's the opinion of Joseph Parker, of Lawrence Okolie.
They think Danny quit.
The people within the boxing sphere often like to gatekeep who can make that accusation, that if you never lace them up, you shouldn't call a fighter a quitter, but it's a bunch of fighters calling him a quitter. It's a bunch of esteemed professionals just like him.
2 of them are former champions, just like him. Lawrence and Joseph, they were world champions once. Tony Bellew.
He was a world champion at 2 weights, and those fighters, just like Daniel, have kissed the canvas before.
I feel so sorry for Daniel because I just think he's a lad who's so regimented in his ways. He gets into fantastic shape. He's a proper machine, guys, and he's had a really good career. But I just think the question needs to be asked: who are you boxing for? Why are you doing this? And is it to impress someone? Is it to keep on the good side? I don't know what it is. because he ain't fighting for money, guys. The boy's financially secure. He was financially secure a long time ago, to be totally honest. And I know that for a fact. So you have to ask the question of why is it? Because when you get into these really hard moments in fights, that's when the real Daniel comes out. And the real Daniel doesn't want to fight.
Dave Allen said something similar. That is Daniel Dubois fighting for himself because he wants to fight, or is he fighting to please someone else? Maybe his father, perhaps, who wants to maintain a certain lifestyle that allows him to throw little soirees in the middle of the afternoon.
Don Charles doesn't like that people are saying this, but Don Charles can't threaten everybody that thinks Daniel quit. Everybody that thinks that Daniel chose to stay down. Some of these fighters are active, some of them are not. But all of them are experienced.
They ain't all armchair critics, so you can't really hide behind that, Don. My thoughts? I can't tell you for sure if I think Daniel chose to stay down or if he was simply incapacitated in the moment.
He'd already got knocked down once before in that round, and when he got knocked down the second time, he looked hurt, and he was breathing heavy. Maybe he just couldn't gather himself quick enough. I don't know. But that's less important to me than what happens moving forward.
You saw the challenge that Don Charles issued out to Lawrence Okolie, to Joseph Parker, that if you guys think he bottled it, at some point, one of you or both of you may be opposite the ring Daniel Dubois. And we'll see who buckles under pressure, we'll see who quits.
But didn't Daniel already pull out of a fight with Joseph Parker?
He did, with some mysterious illness. I'm still not sure what it was. In my opinion, he did that to fast-track himself to an Usyk rematch. And now that that's over with, and it's done, Daniel has the rest of the division to contend with, and they have him to contend with. He's not going to retire. He's only 27. This speaks to what I said in my previous video, that in spite of losing to Usyk in whatever fashion he did, there's no shame in losing to Usyk. AJ lost to Usyk. Fury. Now you.
It's not a career ender, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. That Daniel can come again, and if he does, I could go for a Parker fight. I could go for an Okolie fight. I like the sound of that.
It's a silver lining in all of this, that this is a very much vibrant and thriving heavyweight division, to where everything happening there doesn't all rest on one guy's shoulders. There are many, many good fights to make. For Daniel, for the rest of these guys, beyond Usyk's reign as undisputed champion, because at some point he's going to walk away. He can't do this forever. Beyond that, there are still plenty of fights to make.
Daniel is a young guy. So is Joseph Parker. As experienced as he is, he's in his early 30s.
Until the next dominant heavyweight arrives, the next big thing, we're going to have something to watch. Oh yeah.